So, still to come.
Rampart?
Oh, that's something to look forward to already. So that's, yes, is that the Woody Harrelson film?
Yes.
Okay, I was just checking.
You're having a senior moment. It's like me, who couldn't remember whether or not The Help was out yet and had voices in my head going, is that last year? Floyd and Boyd reviewed it.
The most worrying thing is that wasn't production stuff. That was just
voices in my head.
Which you have
anyway.
Very
good, yeah. What? There's a tweet here from Lee Keane which made me laugh. I like to think of the mobile ads, as I was saying in terms of Star Wars, as Yoda being an out-of-work actor, making money as he's been typecast and no rom-coms coming his way.
Very good. Ed Feetham in Derby, no honours of note. Just got back from seeing Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance. Felt compelled to send this. Now, to say I wasn't a fan of the original would be an understatement, as it rates as one of the shonkiest and most...
Shonkiest? How do you spell that?
Shonk, and then I-E-S-T.
It's Shonk, S-H-O-N-K.
Yes, it's a good word.
OK, I'm going to use that.
Might be very rude.
Does it? OK, fine.
Anyway, one of the shonkiest superhero flicks of all time. However, like a moth is drawn to the flame, the comic book geek in me was drawn to the sequel, while the good lady fiancée was at a folk gig, no doubt with her finger in her ear, singing Foldy Roll. Can I just say, Ed, on that is a terrible stereotype. And I have never seen a folk singer with a finger in the ear or saying Foldy Roll.
OK, can I just say, we played Saturday night at the Sidmouth Folk Festival, and the entire audience consisted of blokes with beards, no hair on the top of their head, but all hair underneath their head, all with one finger in the ear, all with clogs, singing Foldy Roll, and all with a pewter tankard with 3 days' worth of yeast tied to their belts with a piece of string. Every single one of them.
That's your audience.
And then no, it wasn't our audience. They were looking at us going, what's this skiffle?
What's the point?
What's that?
5 minutes and it's fine. The thing about Foldy Roll is the only person that says Foldy Roll is the troll in the Three Billy Goats Gruff, isn't it? It's the troll under the bridge. I'm a troll, Foldy Roll. That's Foldy Roll. Folk singers don't go Foldy Roll. It's the troll in the Three Billy Goats Gruff that says Foldy Roll.
OK, well, you're the expert on children's fiction, or should that be young adult fiction?
Anyway.
March 31st. Oh, March the 1st.
If you're going to mention the release date slightly illegally, then get it right.
Moving on.
But thank you very much for that. In this case, most of the appeal says... Anyway, I bet you, Ed, I bet your girlfriend had more fun than you did. In this case, most of the appeal comes from the character himself, who sits slightly outside the typical man-in-tights-does-good stereotype. Anyway, I went in with a glimmer of hope, but not expecting too much. Suffice to say, it's one of the dullest 90 minutes of action cinema in a while.
Yeah.
Although better than its predecessor, the film looks and feels like a much more interesting product that's had all its edges milled off by a major studio. While this is not unusual, you'd think that hiring Neville Dean Taylor combo and letting them loose with Fruit Loop Cage would birth something at least...
Fruit Loop Cage,
yeah,
that's very good.
At least visually arresting, frenetic and fun. Unfortunately, the film's action is devoid of urgency or excitement, which doesn't bode well for the rest of the movie. Just one extra thing. Special praise should go to the parents breaking Rule 4 of the Code of Conduct at the back of our cinema. Bringing 2 toddlers to a 3D movie about a demonic, soul-sucking anti-hero really deserves a Kermode Award. The crying and screaming stopped around 40 minutes when the parents thankfully left the cinema, leaving a huge pile of rubbish for the poor staff to clear up. Poor form indeed, says Ed. That's very bad. Why would you take 2 small children to go and see that? Ghost Rider.
Madness.
It is indeed.
Madness.
What's the world coming to? Anyway, new stuff, including...
Rampart. Woody Harrelson starring as a renegade cop who plays fast and loose with the rules but gets results, set in LA end of the 90s. He's involved in the sort of the nasty end of a divisional scandal. His superiors would like to see him retire. He's having none of it. Here's a clip.
So what would you like me to say? I'll say whatever I need to.
Have you thought about retirement?
No. In fact, if you force me to retire and file on me, I'll plead not guilty, take it to trial, and represent myself. I'll be playing to a mentally deficient jury, so I'll lose. Though I'll work Vietnam for all it's worth, I'll have PTSD, DDT, TNT, Agent Orange, and the creeping Chinese crud before it's over. Not to mention 24 years on the job. I'll draw a fine and a suspended sentence. Court TV will broadcast the whole thing. I'll have my own show on Fox News inside 1 week. You'll be my first guest.
So you have thought about it.
So, directed by Oren Moverman and a script co-written by James Elroy. There's an interview in London's Time Out in which Oren Moverman says that Elroy was interested in exonerating the LAPD for the infamous Rampart corruption scandal, I had an attraction to the character, Dave Brown, and the portrayal of masculinity. The character portrayed by Woody Harrelson is certainly the thing that's attracted all the attention. His home life is complicated. He's fathered children with 2 sisters, both of whom he still seems to be involved with. He also has a large roster of casual acquaintances, and the female cast is pretty extraordinary. Anne Heche, Cynthia Nixon, Robin Wright, not Robin Penwright, Sigourney Weaver. But it is Harrelson's movie all the way. The interesting thing is that, in a way, the character that he plays is sort of like... If you think of LA Confidential as being Chinatown for the 90s, then this, to some extent, is French Connection for the noughties, in that at the centre of it is, the renegade cop on the edge with foot in reality. And the whole point about the centre of French Connection was the character played by Gene Hackman, the Popeye Doyle character, who's racist and obnoxious and abusive and all the rest of it, but manages to get results. And yet, at the end, the whole thing is very, very open-ended, a very sort of 70s idea. In the case of this, the character is, all these things obnoxious and difficult and blah, 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 blah. And, seems to have an absolutely astonishing way with the most incredibly intelligent, glamorous women, and behaves himself in ways that are utterly appalling. And yet there is a suggestion that somehow what he's doing is he's managing to be good at his job whilst being in the middle of all this sort of corruption. And yet the whole thing has the same sort of open-ended structure. So it is somehow doing something with French Connection, obviously New York, this LA. And an awful lot of the reviews have talked about the way in which, there's an improvisational style. So the film differed, the film came out of improvisation. There was a script, there was a story that Woody Harrelson, when he saw the first cut of it, really didn't like it. And then actually was brought back on board as the cut changed. And the whole point about the film is it doesn't have what you describe as a linear narrative that goes A, B, C, D. It is sprawling. So, in fact, the director has said that actually what his main role in it was to bring all these elements together and somehow prevent them from just sprawling over the place. And the thing with the film is that its strengths are also its weaknesses. At the centre of it is a character who is deliberately unlovable, deliberately in some ways, really appalling, and yet you're meant to be interested in him. And certainly the way Woody Harrelson does give an incredibly charismatic performance. It does remind you that when Woody Harrelson is on the money, he is a very, very fine actor. The sprawlingness of the narrative can sometimes be engaging because it has that sense of open-endedness, that sense of actually what you're looking at is a landscape of characters, but of course at the centre of it is the Woody Harrelson figure. And whilst he's surrounded by a very impressive supporting cast, the movie keeps coming back to its obsession with him. And I think that in being slightly disappointed with the film, it was because back in the 70s you had French Connection and now you've got this. And I think one of the reasons that people like this as much as they do is certainly in the landscape of modern homogenized movie making a movie with such a duplicitous and compromised and unlikable central character, and with such a resolute resistance to follow a linear narrative, and with such an unashamed, unabashed landscape approach to the drama, does indeed stand out like a sore thumb. It is oddly true that 40 years ago, 30s, whatever it is, it was much more possible for that sort of stuff to be in the mainstream at a time when films like French Connection were, becoming... French Connection won, the Oscar for Best Picture. So I think I do like Rampart up to a point. I'm not as wowed by it as everybody else is, and I found that whole kind of push-pull with the character quite often, more alienating than engaging. I admire the filmmaking, but I think the thing that strikes me most about it is the amount that people have liked it. The 5-star reviews that the film has got says more about the dearth of edgy filmmaking in that mainstream area with a Hollywood star today than it perhaps does about the quality of the film. I think the film looks as good to some people as it does because it's kind of working in a rather barren territory. That's not... Do you see what I mean? I'm not...
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I see it now. We've got a minute left and then we're off. So you are on Richard's programme, I think, on